for a side to win the tournament, you need to pick a good 11 for the final. So let's jump straight into that, Dan. And I'm sure there's going to be some problem areas because we are going to need to talk about that. Because as much as we have this confidence where Chelsea might be great with not a lot of the ball, we should probably start on goal where someone is going to have the ball, and that is going to be quite a significant issue, as you and I touched on when we were talking about maybe signing a goalkeeper in the previous pod. So it's going to be Robert Sanchez. Let's be real. As much as we'd love to say give it to. Do you not think it will be? It can't be Bettinelli.
No,
he's gone now.
There's just been chatter that he hasn't been in training.
Okay.
So I mean, at time of recording, I don't know if he's been ruled out or not, which would be quite incredible given he's played the entire tournament for Chelsea. And then the question would be, let's theorize that him missing means that he's not going to play this game. Who comes in for him? I still think it would be Philip Jorgensen, but obviously Mike Penders is still there. But I think Mike Penders, I wouldn't be surprised if he's not involved because he's likely now going on loan to Strasbourg, isn't he? So I think Philip Jorgensen would come in instead of him. But let's go with the assumption that, Rob Sanchez is in goal. I mean, I think that, so these type of games where those things can really be exposed in a pretty harsh way. But the good thing is if Chelsea don't have a lot of the ball, they are forced to play and forced to adapt into a style where they aren't kind of casually passing the ball around their back four. The hope is that if Sanchez cuts that stuff out, which he simply has to against a team like this, the way they press, you can't have any passengers off the ball. You can't have any sort of like players casually going about it in their own sort of 6-yard box, because we know Real Madrid fell victim to that the other night. We've seen Sanchez have some decent performances, when he does cut the stuff out. So that's what it is. I hope in a year's time we're still not sat here in these type of games where it has to be Robert Sanchez, and that's basically it.
Yeah, and that is, I think, I can't believe I'm going to say this. It makes me sound like a complete utter loser. I think that should Chelsea lose this game and under significant pressure from Robert Sanchez mistakes, I think you're looking at a Liverpool, Loris Karius, Kiev situation, which maybe won't be the worst thing in the world. I don't want Chelsea to lose. I don't want them to lose in convincing fashion, but I'm kind of sat there going, if mistakes happen in this game, which cost Chelsea the game significantly, they talk about how he saved Chelsea 9 points in the Premier League this season, right? If he cost Chelsea £40 million, I'm kind of sitting there going, 9 points, 40 million quid. Let's weigh this up, lads. This is the situation here. And if that's maybe what tips them over the edge, then I'm kind of looking at it going, great, fantastic, because Robert Sanchez isn't good enough for games like this. He shouldn't be here. He just categorically
I'm not
shouldn't
entirely
be.
sure that 9-point stat sounds very dubious.
It does, absolutely.
That I don't know where people are coming up with that. I mean, because I could point out, it's what I said the other day, the error that almost led to a goal, or the error that didn't cost us actual points because we salvaged the game.
No, it's that sort of stuff. But I think Chelsea's briefing departments I think they've been figured out now. They're rumbled quite significantly, and we're obviously going to talk about that later on in the show. Obviously, when we're talking about a certain Noni Madueke. And if you're watching the clip, by the way, make sure you go back and watch that. But I would say, I mean, that 9-point stat is always very dubious, because then, as you said last week as well, last show at the beginning of the week, you said you could count and talk about all the mistakes he's made that maybe hasn't led to a goal, but has led to a significant mistake and significant pressure. And that far outweighs that 9 points that has just been picked out of the air with a finger and a bit of saliva. But I think for me, it's I mean, he shouldn't be here next season, and if he is, he should be number 2. He shouldn't be he's not a number 1 goalkeeper, and if he's not the number 2, and that means that Chelsea got a problem with Philip Jorgensen, that's something that needs to be resolved. But we'll move on now. Obviously, left back, I think, picks itself. Marc Cucurella, absolutely fantastic this season. I think, for me, in this tournament, he has cemented himself as the best left back in the world, in my opinion.
I guess he's coming up against someone that people think is the best left back, which is Nuno Mendes. But undeniably, I mean, the chatter over who's the best in the world. I mean, I kind of sometimes roll my eyes because I'm like, it's all subjective, and I don't watch Nuno Mendes every single week. I watch Marc Cucurella every single week, and I can only judge. Honestly, like I think when people say they have all this like vast knowledge on every single player in the world, I roll my eyes because I'm like, no, you don't. No, you don't have enough time to.
Is that you firing shots at Joe McIntosh? I think we should have a word with Joe about that.
No, actually, Jay is not in the firing line today. Uniquely not in the firing line today. He'll be in the firing line at another time. So yeah, I at the very least we know. Yeah, it's still insane. I always bring up this point, and I've probably tired people by saying it, but I can't remember many players who have changed their reputation so drastically, which is incredible. But Cucurella obviously has to start. I think the rest of the defense should pick itself. Really, it's quite obvious. I think the rest of the defense.
So we're going Levi. I mean, is the right centre back that obvious? Is it? Because I think it's tossing.
I like Tosin, right? I think he has developed a lot in recent months. I think in my estimation, I think he's gone up in a lot of ways. However, I think because Levi, who's been Chelsea's best centre back for a while now, he's obviously going to take on the left spot. I think Trev as well, just from like a speed point of view, agility against the sort of team. I sort of look at Trev's performances against Liverpool, who you mentioned earlier. Technical teams, small technical players who are going to try and shift you out of position. I think that's more Trev's game than I think it is Tosin's game. I think Tosin's always been a better player against more physically imposing teams who use set pieces, and that's the threat that Maresca usually cares about. So, yeah, I arguably both of them have enough justification to start, but I think Trev. I'm going to go Trev.
I'm going to go Tosin. But that's purely because I'm thinking about how this Chelsea team in this tournament has shifted in shape, right? So the right back picks itself in Reece, right? Reece James is the right back. But with that, you then obviously see Chelsea shift to a back three. So Cucurella is going to bomb forward, and it'll be a back three of either Trev or Chalobah, either Tosin or Chalobah, and then you'd have Levi and then Reece on the other side, right? In my head, I'm going that middle centre back. I think the mobility isn't an issue with Levi or with Reece, so I'd rather have physical presence in Tosin Adarabioyo, just purely because as well we're talking about. We were saying if we were, looking at how we want Chelsea to play, they're going to go for the Plan B model, right? Which will mean a heavy reliance on transition and set pieces. So I'd go Tosin Adarabioyo just purely because it offers you that height at a set piece, against the likes of Marquinhos as well, and obviously, the other players that are playing in the heart of that defence for PSG. It gives you that physical domineering presence, which I think without Tosin, I do think Chelsea lack, because that means it all hinges on Moises Caicedo. And I do think that, look, he's not going to help at a set piece. He's a physical presence, but outside of that, I do think that Trev would be a good option. But I just think in terms of, chalk and cheese and how you want to deal with the situations, I'd go for the polar opposites to what PSG have and have that physical presence, especially with a back three, which is what it will turn into. I mean, that's what I'd do anyway. But obviously, guys, let us know your thoughts. Unless, Dan, you want to... Have I convinced you? Or I know you're very much a hardcore Trevor Chalobah fan.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's enough justification. I think it's actually more interesting in central midfield because I think this is where Maresca has to make a slight adjustment.
Okay.
I think he has to play three central midfielders. And I think those three central midfielders should be Moises Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez, and Andre Santos, because I think you have to match PSG's three players in that system. You can't have any passengers off the ball. I think you've got to have good numbers a nice ability to cover, I think, a lot of ground, even if you are going to shift to a back three, which we know, more so in possession. I think out of possession, it probably look more like a 4-3-3. And I think, Santos off the ball and the mobility he covers, I thought his performance against Palmeiras was really eye-opening and really mature because he had to play a very disciplined role on short notice. But this game, I think he'll maybe have a bit more license to move forward. The argument would be that Nkunku off the ball, who has started at times in a role that you could argue Santos could. I just don't think Nkunku's that good off the ball. And again,
No, I agree.
I'm looking against PSG. You can't have players off the ball who aren't working hard, who aren't covering ground. And that's why I think Andre Santos, I like the idea of seeing this free play for Chelsea. Because I think it's a free that I could see playing big games for Chelsea in the future. Caicedo, Santos, the physicality, the mobility, and then Enzo Fernandez, who you could make a case has been the informed player for Chelsea he's been one of the most informed players for Chelsea for a period of time now. And yeah, sure, it means that Cole Palmer, you always think of the repercussions further up the pitch. It means that Cole Palmer has to play maybe off the right that then can move in. But again, Cole Palmer's a very good presser off the ball. You have to make sacrifices against a team like this. You can't. I don't think you can play the game you want to or have the license you had against Benfica, against Palmeiras, against Fluminense. You just don't. You just don't have that freedom. And John McKenzie made a point that our off-the-ball structure was very, very risky. And it works probably against a certain level of team who don't have the capacity to exploit it. But PSG have the capacity to exploit it. So you simply have to be flexible. You have to adapt. You have to make sacrifices. You have to say, for this game, Palmer, you're going to have to start off the right. You're going to have to do right-wing things. But in possession, if we shift and we're fluid enough to shift when we get the ball, Palmer can move into a central area and find those pockets of space. So I don't think that it's a bad idea for Palmer to play off the right in this game, but particularly the way he presses.
Okay, but what does that mean for the likes of Pedro Neto, who's been Chelsea's most informed player for this tournament?
Pedro
Really?
Neto just plays off the left. He just plays off the left.
And then we're talking. I'm playing devil's advocate because I'm not disputing that. That makes a lot of sense what you said, right? But if you talk about when Chelsea are pressing, right, and you're talking about who goes further forward, are you basically saying that if Palmer's playing that right wing role, he's basically playing Chelsea's wing back in that position? If you think about how Pedro Neto's been in that position and how he's been covering and stuff, right? Which means you lose creativity further up the pitch because you've got your transition player in Pedro Neto. I think we're just going to categorically say that João Pedro is going to be starting. And if that's the case, then, you do have a player with a focal point. But again, you watch John McKenzie, I've watched a bit of Adam Cleary, like I was saying a couple of days ago. He's somebody who needs people to play off of him. He needs people to bounce off of him. And you'll probably have Enzo Fernandez coming from midfield to make up that three. But then you'll have Cole Palmer very, very isolated. And you're talking about taking players on. We've said how much we appreciate Cucurella and how much we appreciate Nuno Mendes, the two players which are probably the best two left backs in the world right now. Cole Palmer being very isolated against Nuno Mendes, and then Fabian Ruiz dropping into that pocket, which he does for PSG, to make that three as well. Is that something which you feel is you're taking away Chelsea's biggest weapon if you do that, are you not?
I mean, I'd argue again, it's like the fluidity within the system, right? Like I don't think there's a reason why out of possession Palmer shifts to the right to take up that role, but then in possession it is a taxing role. But like, I think he's a physically impressive player. I think he's someone who shows a lot of durability within games. I don't know why when Chelsea do get those transition opportunities, Palmer can't take the ball. He can't drop into that position, or Pedro can't even move a little bit. I mean, if you watch Pedro the other night, he's going out to the left. At times he's linking up on the right. He in himself is not a traditional number 9 who's just going to stay central and not do anything around him. If you look at PSG, right, they don't have they don't have the traditional centre forward. They have a fluid front three.
If you include Hakimi, actually, he's playing up front. Sometimes that's the fluid front.
That's the trade. You have to you are asking the another analyst that I really respect said it years ago, Alex Stewart. He said, you are presenting, both football teams are presenting questions to the other that they have to answer. The question that we have to answer from a PSG point of view is, how do you stop those threats? How do you make it a game where they have the ball in a lot of heat in New York for long periods? How do we get the ball back? How do we stop their biggest threats? But then how do we isolate and really take those counter-attacking opportunities when they come? How are you going to progress the ball? Because there will be large stretches of this game where PSG will have it. I think the question for PSG is, you're going to have a lot of the ball. You have the superiority, I think, in segments. But when you lose the ball and you have these fullbacks that progress very, very high and very aggressively, are you willing to leave Cole Palmer potentially in a position where he can receive the ball, turn, and find the speed of Pedro Neto off the left, the speed of João Pedro? So Enzo Fernandez in transition too, I think, can be a very devastating player as well in terms of the way he's able to receive the ball, turn, and find a killer pass potentially. So that's the way I'm thinking about this game. I think you have to. This is not the game to be idealistic. This is not the game to. If everything's perfect, this is like my perfect attacking kind of creative formation. You have to, as we started this pod talking about the power of PSG and the humility you have to have within that. And I think all the best Chelsea teams have had that humility of understanding that you've got to give a level of respect to the opposition, and you can't play the idealistic game you want to. Arsene Wenger for years would walk into these games and play the idealistic version and get trampled on every time, because you've got to understand, if we play the game, if we play our A mode against PSG and they play their A mode, PSG probably win the game. I think 9 times out of 10 they play that. You've got to take them into a position where in a game style they don't want to play. I think at times Chelsea have got to be physical. They've got to be a bit more direct. They've got to hoof the ball to João Pedro. They've got to try and make it awkward. You've got to try and unsettle this PSG side, which is not aesthetically pleasing, which is probably not even what Maresca wants to play, but it's what you have to do against quality of this opposition.
It's true. All right, then, fine. We'll go with that. So if we're going for the Chelsea team to face PSG, this is the Echo 11. You've got Robert Sanchez in goal, TBD, based on injuries. Found that would be Philip Jorgensen. Left back, Marc Cucurella. Right back, Reece James. Your 2 centre halves. We are going for Levi. You can have Carl Palmer on the right if I can have Tosin at centre back.
Okay, fair enough.
Right, fine. We'll have Tosin playing next to Levi Colwill and centre back. The midfield 3 of Moises Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez, and Andre Santos, and a front 3 of Pedro Neto on the left-hand side, Cole Palmer on the right-hand side, and João Pedro through the middle. But that is the Echo 11. Let us know your thoughts and obviously how you think Chelsea are going to do in this fixture.